Does it feel like you're running a race on a treadmill? You're doing everything right. You're working hard. You're hustling. You're moving fast. But the scenery never ends. Well, that's what I call the golden handcuffs. Some of you might call that the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. You're doing what you can. You're doing the right things, making sure that your bills are paid on time, that you're able to make it to the end of the month. But somehow you're just stuck in the same vicious cycle. Well, today we're not talking about spreadsheets. Instead, we're going to talk about the mental keys that you need in order to unlock prosperity and liberate wealth. And as you know, that's what we do here at Unshackled for Life. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unshackled for Life. We're unlocking prosperity and liberating wealth. I'm your host, John Green. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be here for another season of Unshackled for Life, where we unlock prosperity and liberate wealth. Again, I'm John Green. I'm excited to get into a whole new season full of information and opportunities to help those who struggle with their finances. Well, all right. So today's episode, like I said earlier, it's about the Unshackled for Life mindset. I did an episode in season 1 about this, but I've grown since then, and I've updated my thoughts on this unshackled mindset. So today I'm going to start with I want to start with the shackle. Like what is this shackle that I'm trying to unshackle myself from? And I'm also going to go into how how I got out of the shackles of debt. So, let's start with the shackle. So the shackle is debt. It's the debt mindset. Most people think that debt is a math problem, but I'm going to change that. I'd like to propose that it is instead a boundary problem. We take on debt as consumers for a variety of things. Could be for a house with a mortgage, it could be for, a car. We take on huge amounts of credit card debt. Some people go out and just, they go to department stores and take on debt for that. It could be anything. Like nowadays, almost every store you go into, they'll harp on you for, signing up for the credit card to save 10% or something. So, what I want to do is just talk about this debt mindset. When you think about what debt really does, it's, it is really spending your future time today, and you're messing with your future. Debt is borrowing tomorrow's peace for today's pleasure. That's something I came up with, and I like it. Borrowing today is borrowing tomorrow's peace for today's pleasure. Think about that. Whenever we take on a loan, whether it's a car loan or it could be, using our credit cards, whatever the case may be. Whenever we use debt, we're usually using it to secure something that we want today. It's a want, it's a pleasure. All right. Every now and then it might be a need. There might be a need, especially if it's a medical procedure or something like that. That we get, I get. When you're in a debt mindset, you're not just paying interest. You're paying, your energy, your options, which is a important thing. You're also paying your sense of control because you end up not having control with the things that you're borrowing against. Those debtors could always come to you and demand instant payment, or they could just take it away from you if you don't make your payments on time. That's not always the best way to be. So that's the debt mindset. Let's now talk about the liberation mindset. Wealth, when you have wealth, usually you have liberation, you have sovereignty, you have the ability to choose your life instead of reacting to life. When you think about wealth, it's not about having millions of dollars. A lot of times we think, oh, when people are wealthy, oh, they have all of this money. Not necessarily. There are people who they've removed themselves from debt, and by unshackling the debt, they find themselves with a new freedom, a new peace. They have a freedom to do what they want. Now, it's not to say, oh, well, if they want a Ferrari, they can't go buy a Ferrari if they don't have, the money for it. That's true. But then we have to go back to what we got into debt for. If we go and use debt to purchase something like a Ferrari, we're using that so we can have the pleasure of it today without really putting a whole lot of thought into your future plans. Now that we've talked about the debt mindset, let's talk about the unshackled for life mindset. I'm going to shorten it by calling it the liberation mindset. Wealth is not it's not a number. It's not about having $1 million+ in a bank account. Wealth is freedom. Wealth is an ability to choose life instead of reacting to life. People who are wealthy, they have an understanding of how to use money. They realize that money is a tool for freedom and not a trophy for validation. When we watch a lot of what culture tells us is rich, being rich, flashy cars, designer clothes, that's not wealth. Wealth is quiet. It's not loud. Usually you don't see wealth. There are people walking around you every day who are wealthy, and you have no idea that they have wealth. And that's okay, because that's probably how a lot of people want to keep it. When you go into an unshackled for life mindset, you understand that your money is your tool for freedom. And people who have this liberation mindset, they understand that money is a tool, and they, I can tell you that when your mindset shifts, you'll have brand new habits on how to handle money. A lot of opportunities start to open up for these people, because when there's not the stress of debt and that stress of feeling tied down and chained up, you start to see the world a little better and a little more clear. You have more clarity, and those opportunities start to present themselves. And another thing about those with the liberation mindset, they have tools to fix problems instead of creating problems. And I'll go into more of that a little bit later. I love to talk about emergency fund. That is the tool that will fix a problem very quickly. All right. But anyways, just want you to understand that's where the unshackled mindset begins. Understanding the difference between the debt mindset and the liberation mindset. The next thing I'd like to address today, I want to talk about my three pillars of wealth liberation. All right. So, three things: you have awareness, you have intentionality, and you have vision. All right. So, we're going to start with pillar number one, which is awareness. Most people don't have a money problem, it's an awareness problem. Most people are not aware of where their money is going, or, how often it's going out. So, awareness is all about, seeing taking a moment to stop and look at where your money goes and having an understanding of where it's going. It's not about judging where it goes. So awareness is not really about judgment. It's not about overthinking. It's just noticing and observing and having clarity on where your money is going. It's most people are financially stressed, and those people are stressed because they're financially blind. They don't know, they can't see where their money is going. They've lost track. So when you don't know where it's going, I like to think it's already gone. With this awareness comes clarity, and that clarity is the first crack in the chain to break free from debt. Okay? So that's awareness. Pillar number 2, intentionality. With intentionality, once you're aware of where your money's going, you can start to take control. And that's what intentionality is. It's where freedom starts to take shape. And this is where you stop letting your money just kind of freely flow out of your hands, and you start to have control of your money. You're holding on to it, and you're determining where that money goes. It's not accidental spending. You're not freely just giving your money away. You are very intentional about where you spend it, where you put it. This is where you begin to unlock prosperity because you're no longer reacting, you're designing where that money goes. You're putting a strategy to it. Think of it this way: your money should move with purpose, not impulse. Your money should move with purpose and not impulse. When I think about this, I think about my own personal life and when I started to get clarity on where where my money was going and why I was not really getting ahead, even though I knew I should be getting ahead. And once I became aware of where the money was going, I remember sitting down just listing everything I thought where my money was going, and then I jumped online and started to compare it to my bank statements. And I realized there were so many things where my money was just running out. It was just passing through my hands. I was spending so much money on eating out. And at the time, I was dating. And, those dates were getting very expensive. And I really wasn't considering how expensive they were becoming. But once I did, I kind of changed, quite a few things. With that knowledge, I became very intentional about where I chose to spend my money. And once I started to gain control of where and how I was spending my money, I realized, man, I actually have a little bit of money at the end of the month. And that is an awesome feeling because once you start to collect money like that, you start to realize, hey, I could really use this money for other things. And that brings me to pillar number 3, vision. So vision is kind of like the goal of where your money can go if, once you have it. So your money can't build what you cannot imagine. So you have to have some sort of imagination or some sort of plan of where you want to spend your money. All right. And how you want to spend your money. And it's the vision that really gets you to that feeling of being unshackled, because once you can start spending money on the things that interest you, the things that you care about, man, like it really changes your whole demeanor. It changes how you see the world around you because again, so many new opportunities will start to develop and start to pop up in your life. And you'll just be like, wow, things are different now. And it'll be a positive difference. And it's a great feeling. So without vision, your money, it'll just continue to feel like a chore. Yes, you're paying your bills. Yes, you're making it through every month. Hey, yes, maybe at the end of the month, you have a little bit more that you can put in a little savings account. That's all great. That's all fine. But once you know, once you have your vision, then money becomes a tool for liberation. You can start to use it so that you can live your best life. All right. So, again, let's just kind of do a quick recap of these three pillars. So, the pillars are: you have awareness, where you visually see and get clarity on where your money is going. The second pillar is intentionality, where you take control of your money and you start to put it where you want it to go. And then last but not least is vision. And vision is when you can take that extra money that you now have and really apply it to the things that are most important to you and your life. And that's financial freedom. Continuing on with vision. Vision will give your discipline a destination. So once you are starting to save, you'll then have an ability, you can have a vision for where you want that money to grow. And once it grows, how will you use it? When you know what freedom looks like, you will stop settling for survival, because paycheck to paycheck, that is a survival method. And once you can break free from that, once you can, lose those chains of debt, and you can break free from this cycle, you'll really find your whole life starting to move forward in a wonderful new direction. And, as a financial coach, yes, I am here to try to get you to see something better. And, this just might sound like, oh, yeah, a little rah rah thing. But seriously, once you have liberated yourself from this paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, I'm telling you, it's completely, it's a completely different way of looking at money. You just see the whole world differently. Whenever, when you're stuck in that broke mindset, that debt mindset, it's like you only see a small part of the world. You don't really realize what all is out there. But once you break free and you kind of get to go see something else, the world really begins to open up. All right. Think of vision as the blueprint for what you want to build out of life. Money is simply the builder. It'll help you build it, but the vision is the blueprint. All right. So that's what I want you to kind of understand. Now that we've addressed the three pillars, okay. So again, we have awareness, intentionality, and vision. Awareness shows you the truth. Intentionality, it gives you the plan. And vision, it gives you the reason to move ahead with that plan. All right. And together, they create the unshackled for life mindset. And this is the mental framework that then turns financial chaos into financial control. And that is really when you start to unlock prosperity and liberate wealth. Ever feel like your paycheck controls you more than you control it? Like invisible chains are holding your future hostage? Well, it's time to break free. Most people were never taught how money really works. They're stuck in survival mode, living paycheck to paycheck, hoping things will magically get better. But freedom doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. I'm John Green, host of Unshackled for Life and a financial coach, helping people rewrite their money story. If you're ready to stop feeling trapped and start building real freedom, consider this your wake up call. Visit us at www.unshackledforlife.com and schedule your session today. If you're liking what you've heard so far here on Unshackled for Life, please consider liking and subscribing so that the algorithm will choose us, and we can get more followers and get put into proper position for those who are just like you, people who are trying to get out of debt and find ways to liberate themselves financially. I want to go into just a quick history lesson so that maybe you can kind of understand my personal story and my personal journey. So I've mentioned, the three pillars: awareness, intentionality, and vision. Just a quick summary of what's happened to me in my life. So there was a time where my first marriage, life was rough. Um, during my first marriage, I actually filed bankruptcy. I had bought a house that was truly a money pit. Um, Made a lot of bad financial decisions. A lot of bad financial decisions. Bought some cars that I probably shouldn't have bought, and just made some bonehead money moves. And it was when, once I was divorced from my ex-wife, and I was kind of, I was left with what I had in front of me. I was still within the, was it 10 years of bankruptcy, so I still had that on my credit report, so credit was still shot. Um there were, again, some bad car moves that were made that were still there on my credit report as well. So long story short, credit was crap. And with it being crap, I wasn't able to get a loan. And there was this moment where I needed the bank to give me, to kind of give me an advance, and the bank did not give me the advance. And I was in a tight position. Yeah, I could have gone to a payday lender and gone that route, but luckily, I chose not to do that. No telling where I would be now if that was the direction I chose to go. But anyways, I thought I had this idea of what debt was and how to control it and how to manage it, and I would just keep using debt. So the bank one day told me that, yeah, we can't give you the payday advance. You're gonna have to figure it out. And it did make, it made things tight for that 2 week period. But once I came out of that 2 week period and I got my next paycheck, I hadn't gone into more debt because the bank wouldn't, it didn't allow me to go into more debt. And when that happened, man, it actually helped. It actually helped more than it hurt. So, having that brief moment of the bank not helping me, during that period, I really started to rethink what I was going to do with my next paycheck. And once I received that next paycheck, which had a healthy bonus on it, by the way, that's why I was kind of looking forward to a paycheck advance. But once I got that check, I had taken enough time to get clarity on where my money was going. And I also had time to be very intentional about what I would do with that next paycheck. So once I had it and I was able to use it the way I intended, it actually catapulted me forward. And once I had that momentum, it felt so great, I decided not to lose it. So I started to change some of the things that I was doing. One of the things I did was I made it a goal. One of my visions was to keep $1,000 in my savings account no matter what. So that's what I did. That was like something I envisioned. And this is before I learned about Dave Ramsey and all of his stuff. This was way before that. But something just told me, keep $1,000 in your savings account. No matter what you do, just always keep it at $1,000. So that's what I did. That became a vision. And with that vision, came more actions. And I started to create more visions, and I became more intentional about where my money would go and how it would be used to fund my visions. And that's kind of what catapulted me into, where me and my family are today. There were some great things that came from being aware, being intentional, and having vision. So, the three pillars of Unshackled for Life, I hope that you will consider them and think about it. Okay, so one thing I want to do this season with Unshackled for Life with the podcast, at the end of every episode, I would like to give you a micro action. Think of it as a quick, to do goal, to do action step that you can do that'll help put you in the right direction. So, I was talking about the bank earlier and how they, how by them not giving me that payday loan, they helped me out. So, look, let's use the bank. Let's use the bank to help us. So, one thing I would like for you to do is log into your bank account. Most of the big banks out here, Chase and Wells Fargo and all of them, most of them, they allow you to name your account. You can put a little name on it. Why don't you go and name your savings account the Freedom Fund and give your money a mission that inspires you? And hopefully, if you're tired of feeling shackled, if you're ready to step into clarity and intentionality and reach for visions, reach for those goals, then let's give it a try. Just rename it. Rename it something that's going to motivate you. I say call it the Freedom Fund. Like I said, a lot of people call it the emergency fund, but it is the Freedom Fund. It really gives you a sense of freedom when you have that extra money just sitting there and you can use it when you need it and how you need it. It's just a lovely thing. So I hope that little action step helps you. And, if you're, if you're feeling, again, if you're feeling shackled, if you feel like you want to step into clarity, confidence, and control, please reach out. Let's talk. Head over to unshackledforlife.com, schedule your hello call where we just simply talk about, what you want out of life and, kind of what your vision is. And we can see if, I can see if I can help you out with that. Remember, I don't believe in budget shaming. I'm not going to take away your lattes. I'm just here to help you architect freedom. That's what I do here at Unshackled for Life. So until next time, you guys, stay focused, stay free, stay unshackled. Peace and love from Unshackled for Life.